Hey everyone on YouTube. It's tomorrow. We're just getting set up here. We're going to start the podcast momentarily. So thanks for joining. If you are joining from all over the world. Oh, okay. There we go. See those little glitches. Move this over here. Getting all my tech figured out. All right. And we are back. Okay. Woohoo. Here we go. Oh, I got to press record. That would be helpful. I've made that mistake before.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
After 2 hours.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tomorrow. Welcome to the podcast. And today we have a fantastically magical guest. We have Roudy Nassif from Viva Rays. And Roudy, you guys, is the founder of Viva Rays. He's an engineer. He's an innovator. He's a quantum health coach and a speaker. And I am so excited to have a magical conversation with you today, Roudy. So welcome to the podcast.
Awesome day to you, Heidi. Thank you so much for the great intro.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to tell everybody, read your bio really quick so we get a little bigger view of what you're all about. So Roudy is an engineer. He's a health entrepreneur, a light expert, the founder of Viva Rays, offering the most advanced circadian light filtering eyewear, which I brought with me, for better sleep and energy. Roudy has been educating thousands of healthcare practitioners and doctors about the quantum biological effects of lighting and helping them optimize their personal as well as their patients' well-being. He's on a mission to elevate people's light environment on a whole new level of alignment with nature in order to live in an optimal rhythm, improving their sleep, energy, focus, and higher productivity. Whew, it's quite a job, Roudy.
Yes, such a loving job.
Yeah, right. Okay, so after that, do you want to just jump in and tell us about how did you even come about, being teed up to your circadian rhythm? You mentioned to me that you had an experience in Northern Canada with some Indigenous people. Do you want to just go through your story and just give us a little background on what you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. It all started actually when I was still a little kid, knowing nothing about the topic. I suffered from debilitating headaches, agitation, and inability to focus in the classroom. And I literally used to misbehave because I intuitively wanted to escape the indoor environment. It didn't feel good to me. And I wanted to be outside in the sun. But however, after some time, I was eventually diagnosed with the label ADHD. And I was forced back to stay in an environment that really did not feel good to me. And to be honest, it felt very torturing on every level. Like my inner genius as a kid was really suffering at that time. And as the year passed, by the time I got to engineering school, I started living as a night owl. I felt very wired, very stimulated at night, completely disconnected from myself. I stayed up very late, partying, and then waking up the following day extremely late, tired, lacking the energy, feeling exhausted, and completely unmotivated. Now, after 2 years of working as an engineer, I literally hit a bottom in my life where I felt the most depressed, fatigued, and disoriented I have ever felt in my whole life. And at this point, I went so deep into the dark that I had to make a choice to do something about it. And I remember that night very well. I get goosebumps. I mean, I was in my chamber, I was in my room, and I stood in front of the mirror and I was looking into my eyes squarely. And I made a commitment to myself that I really want to transform my health issues. I knew that I am not those issues and I am not those problems. I'm something much beyond that. And I wanted to discover that thing or remember it. So I knew that I had to leave everything behind. I left my job as a civil engineer and I started a long journey of traveling and seeking and learning from different health experts and holistic doctors. And I was literally traveling to the unknown, like booking my experience last second and going. And as I was learning from these different health experts, I started to feel extremely overwhelmed with all the different health opinions about what I should be doing. And to be honest with you, Heidi, different health gurus were pointing to different diets, supplement companies, and they all seem to contradict each other somehow.
Mm.
And no matter how many diets I was trying, I wasn't feeling any better.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the volunteering trip with the indigenous people. Miraculously, this specific event changed all of this, and it literally changed my life. It was a turning point in my life. I spent several weeks volunteering on a rural farm in northern Quebec, in a beautiful area. And throughout those 6 weeks, I was sleeping in my tent, and I was exposed only to natural light during the day and candle and firelight during the evening for the first time in my life. Remember, I was born and raised in a city. So what happened is that within a matter of 3 days, something miraculous was happening. I started literally naturally winding down in the evening, feeling super relaxed, calm, and mellow, sleeping shortly after the sunset to then wake up before the sunrise for the first time in my life, feeling super rested, refreshed, full of energy, and extremely motivated. I was feeling a quality of energy bubbling in me that I have never felt. And it reminded me of the time when I was like 3 years old, when I was still connected to that aspect of myself.
Wow.
So it was a phenomenal time when I was farming outdoors all day, learning about biodynamic farming from the indigenous people, dancing, cooking, hiking, swimming in lakes. And I was able to achieve in a 24-hour period more than I did in a 21 years, literally. And when I say achieve, it's like basically tapping into the meaningful achievement of like inner satisfaction and inner connection. Now the question is, how did that magic happen? If you think about it, I didn't change my diet. I did not take any supplements, and I was exercising and meditating in the same way I was before. So that put me in complete awe, but I did not even have time to think about it much. I was like going with the flow and really enjoying it. But unfortunately, when this vacation ended and I returned back to the city, and at the time I was still living in Toronto, within a matter of few weeks, I literally fell back into my old terrible routine, and I find myself again struggling with depression and disorientation. So on the spot, something in me whispered in my ears, take off again and go volunteer on another farm. And I did. And once again, within a matter of few days, I was able to restore perfect sleep, energy, and vitality that I've never felt before.
Oh my God.
So basically at this stage, I was really wondering, like, how is that magic happening? Is there something so special about those farms that is like literally transforming my life in a short period of time? And what I start observing is that all of those farmers and those indigenous people living up north in this lifestyle had a quality of light in their eyes that I have never seen in the community of folks who are following all these complicated diets and whatnot. And what I quickly realized that those farmers lived a balanced rhythmic lifestyle that is much different from the lifestyle that we all live in the city. And none of them needed to take very expensive supplements and engage in any dogmatic diets, which was very interesting. And if you observe what they all had in common, they all rose before the sunrise, naturally with no alarm clock. They spent most of their day outside, whether it was cold or not. They were very connected to their environment. Now, they also ate seasonally what grew around them while the sun is out, and they fasted when the sun is down. And they ate at similar time every day. And their only source of light after the sunset was fire and candlelight.
Wow.
So simply put, they lived a balanced rhythmic lifestyle that is in complete alignment with the balanced rhythmic light environment of Mother Nature. And I truly think that this was the exact magical recipe that was catalyzing this transformation that I experienced on those farms. And time after time of alternating between cities and farms, I started becoming more aware of what's happening. And this led me to a deep study and investigation, 7 years so far, of studying more about light, the quantum biological effect of light and circadian rhythms. And I was seeking and going around consulting the world's leading expert in those fields to be able to validate those experiences. I mean, the beauty about what happened with me is that I did not intellectualize it and then experience it. I experienced it. Every cell in my body knew it. And then I had to like find something to validate that experience and intellect through the intellect.
Yeah. Can I just pause for just a second, Roudy? So is Dr. Jack Kruse, is that one of the experts that you were looking really intently at, or is there a couple others that you want to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it started with bouncing into the work of Dr. Jack Kruse.
Okay.
And from there, I was introduced into several Facebook groups who shared a lot of phenomenal books like The Body Electric, John Ott, Dr. Jacob Lieberman, who's a mentor and a really good friend that I get to connect with from time to time and discuss about light.
Cool.
So yeah, I think it started with Jack Kruse and then it spread out in different directions. And
what about T.S. Wiley?
No, I don't know him.
Oh, it's a woman. She wrote a book called Lights Out back in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
In the 90s. Yeah. You have to add that to your list. Well, here's the thing. So Thaddeus, my husband, is one of the experts, right? And he got this book on his bookshelf forever, and it's called Lights Out. And we were like, oh, we'll pick it up. Yeah, Lights Out. And T.S. Wiley wrote it. I want to say it's in the 90s. I want to say like mid to late 90s. And a lot of the content that was in there is what we're hearing Dr. Kruse talk about. So we're like, wow. Dr. Kruse was like studying T.S. Wiley, which I love because she's a woman. Not a lot of women like in that, like in this arena, right? Especially like biohacking and whatever, the light arena. And I don't know, just like on my own accord, like I wish he would give her more kudos to some of those ideas. And she, like everything that you guys talk about and educate about, she was writing about that in the 90s.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to check out that book. Is it like available, or is it
one of
those that's very difficult to get?
Yeah, no. I'm sure it's on Amazon. She's also really teed up to women and hormones in their light environment. And I was also going to ask about Matt Maruka. Like, are you obviously, if you're studying with Dr. Kruse, you probably were introduced to Matt.
Yeah, like I think we bounced into that topic at a very similar time. I think maybe Matt was introduced in the topic a little bit before me, and I remember like connecting with him and having a call one time and discussing some of those things where he was sharing with me what he was doing.
Yeah, we just ran into him last April at the Paleo Effects conference, and we were down in Barton Springs in Austin, and all of a sudden we look over and there's Matt like in Barton Springs, like because we're all cold plunging in there. We're like, hey, what's up? It was really fun. We went and got $30 smoothies after that. Gotta love Austin.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That picture background behind you makes me really want to go and plunge in that lake.
Yeah. Totally. So continue on your light journey. I just had to tap into you a little bit there with the experts.
Yeah. So this 7-year journey, I learned like a basic fundamental thing that I think I really knew and connected with as a kid. I learned that we are light beings, and that physical reality is but light that is vibrating at a lower speed, E=mc² by Einstein. And I started diving a little bit more in that equation and what it means to biology. And it actually means that not only light that shape every aspect of our life and well-being, but it's actually the nucleus of life itself. There's no reality outside of what we call light. All things are light, and matter itself is light. And the quality of our light exposure will literally determine the quality of our sleep, focus, productivity, mood, well-being, and literally the quality of our life. But if you think about it, all of us in this modern world, we are very disconnected from what we call light, and we are very disconnected from ourselves, therefore. And we're getting very little natural light during the day. And most of us are bombarded by junk artificial lights from phones, devices, and LED bulbs and screens. So as I was learning this and discovering, I was so eager to find the solution so that I could mitigate the effects of artificial lights. And I really wanted to know whether I could experience those exalting effects that I experienced on those farms without necessarily turning into a farmer, because I had a different calling in my life. I have learned so much from farmers, and we can all learn so much from their wisdom and from their simple lifestyle. and try to implement this into a more sophisticated technological way of living. But the thing is, it was easy for me, let's say, to maximize healthy light during the day, because all I needed to do is learn exactly when to do what in relation to natural lighting, when to get that natural lighting and for how long and so on. But the main challenge is it was almost impossible for me every time I stepped into the city to avoid artificial lighting, unless I lock myself in my room and don't do anything after the sunset
Right.
and not see anybody. Then it was like almost like close to impossible. So that's when I actually discovered about blue blocking glasses. And after trying so many, from clear lenses to yellow to orange, red, I experimented with so many.
Yeah.
I wasn't like really experiencing the benefits that I felt on that farm, especially when I started with those clear lenses, which turned out to be a scam and they do not actually work.
Right.
So I wasn't ready to give up, because that was something fundamental in my life, right? So I was consulting many of the circadian experts, and I wanted to discover why those blue blocking glasses in the market don't work. And as an engineer, I was very curious. So I bought a very expensive spectrocolometer, and I went on measuring and doing different experiments and going from one optometrist to other and having so many different conversations and measurements and discussions. And this actually started giving me the understanding and start inspiring me. And I wanted to develop something that actually works. And as a result, we came up with the world's first probably 3-lens circadian light filtering eyewear that is engineered to block specific amount of artificial light, depending on the light that is present in nature at a particular time of the day. So it's literally designed to provide a 24-hour protection from junk light in a very strategic way, where during the day, you're filtering exactly how much you need to filter without overdoing it, so that you're not disrupting your circadian system.
Right.
And in the evening, we try to mimic the color temperature of the bonfire, whereas at nighttime, 1 hour before bed, we worked on a specific technology that filters 100% of the blue and the green, and also decreases the brightness by 15 times, because we discovered along the way that this is actually also a very important feature that is fundamentally important, because even like bright light of any color, it could be yellow. If it's too bright, it could stimulate your circadian clock in the wrong direction and disturb your sleep.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second. So I have a funny story for you. When I first met Thaddeus, which was about 5 years ago, he was wearing his blue light blocking glasses after sunset, and then he had a pair of red glasses. They're, red, what you're just saying, and then they dim the light as well. So I live in a really old house. It's like, it was built in like 1915 or something. And my stairs, like, they are not up to code. They are like, they're treacherous, and they're just wood, and they're slippery, and it's like, it's bad news. So Thaddeus has the red glasses on. He's walking. I think he was like walking. He must have been coming down the stairs, and he tripped, and he's like just about fell. And like, if you fall down those stairs, like it's not good. And he got down to the bottom. It was kind of like a kerfluffle, like, and I was like, holy shit. I'm like, are you okay? And he was like, oh yeah, glasses, and I can't see. And I'm like, so I just paused for a moment, and sometimes I can be really logical too, Roudy. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You put these red glasses on, and you just about kill yourself going down the stairs. I was like, but you're protecting your health. I was like, I don't know about that. Like, it seems a little odd.
Yeah, definitely. It's very important. See, like when you first start learning about this topic, you go through different stages. Yeah. One of those stages is almost like that obsession, right? Yeah. And that you think that, oh my God, if some light goes into my eyes, I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm not gonna wake up the following day. But
wait a minute, we're still there. That is still there.
Yeah.
What's the next stage? Because I don't know that one.
Well, the next stage is like acceptance of what is. So, for example, what happened with me is like several times the universe gave me a big lesson where I forgot my glasses. Something happened where I did not have my glasses on, and I found myself in a completely artificially lit environment. And that happened several times. And it was a big lesson for me to learn how to find my flow, how to surrender to what is, and accept that, you know what, right now I don't have my glasses. Artificial lights are on. I live in a modern era where people are not as aware about this topic. And you know, it became a little bit more playful to me, where like it started becoming deeply more alive in myself, that this is a game and I'm playing this game, and my job in this game is to change this reality while staying joyful and staying relaxed about it.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and there's that. However, my husband has 4 or 5 pairs in every vehicle that we own. So
That's smart.
right. So like we're never actually caught without them. And so,
Yes.
and you know what, Roudy, like I kind of like, I don't feel like that's bragging, but I have not missed one night with blue blockers. I was like, so I like do a lot of personal development coaching and like of my own, right? And I'm in like a lot of different coaching programs. And I was like looking at my discipline in my last leadership program. And I'm like, oh, like I need to work on my discipline and blah, blah. And all of a sudden I started making a list of things I'm really disciplined with. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't, since I met Thaddeus, since he sent me my first pair of Swanwick glasses, the first week that we started dating, I have not missed one night in 5 years.
Wow.
Not one.
And that's such a wonderful gift for a date. I mean, not
Right?
so many men will give that gift, right?
I know. And he was just like, he's like, I mean, if we're gonna date, he's like, you're gonna wear these, right? And here's like, I'm just super open, and I'm like, yeah, like teach me. And so I've been living, with him and learning about all this stuff really intimately for the last 5 years. And I mean, talk about rigor. He has taught me, he came in my life as yin yang. Like I'm super playful and like goofy and whatever. And, I'm an artist, and he's like rigor and analyzer and And it's really good that we balance each other like in that way.
Yeah.
So
It's beautiful.
yeah. And with the glasses too, like, I don't know. I mean, if I don't have them, I'm kind of like, I'm in a place now where I'm just like, oh my God, like I wouldn't want to be without.
Yes.
So
Yes, I get that. See, like the thing is, our eyes are not designed to get any light after the sunset, because this is the time when there's all this cleaning and rejuvenation that is happening, and it requires that signal of darkness, which actually lead the body to secrete melatonin in our bloodstream, which is a very important signaling molecule that gives the on button to activate all the rejuvenation and healing. Right. And our eyes are very, very rich in mitochondria, and mitochondria, which are like the power cells in our body that produce the energy, really not only require a lot of sunlight during the day, but also a lot of darkness, so that they can undergo mitophagy, which means like they could literally recycle. Mitochondria recycle itself, so it just throws away what is not useful anymore. Right. And and then it keeps and repair what is useful. So without this quality, we start aging and we start running into different problems. And I had a very interesting experience this week. I was with a friend of mine, and we went to Tolontongo in the mountains of Mexico. It's an area that is very rich in hot springs and caves and whatnot. And we were doing a Janzu practice. It's a water practice, which I could talk a little bit more about. Yeah. But basically, throughout those 6 days, our light exposure was on spot, right? We're outside all day getting sunlight and natural lighting. And at night, there's no artificial light whatsoever. And when we came back to our cabin, it was like a very gentle candlelight. So I mean this is how I live wherever I am. But for my friend, it was such a new experience to her, and she was loving it, and she was like connecting with her intuitive feminine part of herself that she said she has not connected with for so long. And she found herself feeling much more meditative, much more contemplative at night. But what happened is, after this experience ended, we drove back to Mexico City, which is almost like Toronto and even worse. Yeah. A lot of artificial lighting. And my friend is Mexican and she really wanted to try Lebanese food. And I'm like, okay, I have not had Lebanese food for so long as well, because I'm very specific with what I eat, but let's go. So we went to this Lebanese restaurant, and basically we arrived there, and she started having blind spots in her eyes. And she told me, oh my God, I'm having these blind spots. And this means that I'm going to have a migraine that usually lasts 5 days. I'm like, okay, wait a second. I picked up a pair of glasses from my bag and I gave it to her. I'm like, wear these red lenses. And you won't believe it. I did not believe it, to be honest. I did not know that it's going to work that fast. But within a matter of a minute, she says, oh my God, what is that? And I'm like, what's up? What's happening? And she's like, the blind spot disappeared. And like, she like all of her eyes were relaxing and she did not experience that migraine. And she was extremely grateful because she said, oh my God, I was so worried because when this kicks in, it's a sign that I'm going through a phase of 5 days of intense migraine. And what actually is triggering her migraine is the lack of darkness, right? So she is chronically exposed to artificial light, and her eyes, her body somehow is very intelligent, gives her a sign, but she did not know what to do about it until she had this experience that she discovered, oh my God, so all this time, all these migraines were happening because of my junk chronic exposure to artificial lighting. It was literally solved in a matter of seconds when she put the glasses on.
That is unbelievable, but yet so believable. I mean, so I love the stories and the personal experiences. Like Thaddeus and I speak to that so often. And you like, we can read all the data. We can read, I mean, I know you're an engineer and it's all super important. It's the science, you know, there's science that backs up, and well, science is actually theology, but spirit and all of it. But, you know, like having those experiences and going, oh my God, you guys, like there's so much truth in this, right? And look at what happened. This woman, you know, like was going to go for 5 days with a migraine. I can't even imagine like what that would be like, as I've never had a migraine. And I even know, like in my own purview, you know, like that doesn't come into my world, right? Like I'm just like, I shut that down with mindset for, you know, beyond that as well. But having these stories and having these experiences over and over again, like my sleep is dialed in. I'm sure your sleep is like, I mean, we don't have sleep issues, you know, like we're well rested. We wake up, I'm jump out of bed. I'm like, woohoo, let's go. And I just see so many people that have these issues. And it's like this one, it's not even a trick. It's actually science, is like what you explain, you know, like in your website too. And I also want to bring that up. You guys, if you haven't been to the vivarays.com, Roudy's website, it's amazing. Click on the learn, click on his blog, read all that stuff. It is very well, like I love how you lay everything out. It's very easy to understand, even if you don't know, if it's your first little, you know, snippet into this world, right? So, oh my gosh, yeah, I love that story. And I'm sure you have tons of stories like that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And yeah, regarding the blog, I mean, every time I write anything, I imagine that I'm talking to a 3-year-old, and see, like science is not as complicated as we make it when we stop having the egoistic side of us that want to make it complicated. I mean, science is a doorway to spirit, and spirit is a doorway to science. And when they all intertwine, when there's this loving energy and there's this energy of like deeply and eagerly wanting to understand, that's when both energies really intertwine and they create beauty and they create simplicity. And anything that is like really way over people's head and complicated is really made complicated for no reason. So I don't see like any reason why we need to complicate those stuff. If you look at those farmers, they lived a balanced, rhythmic, very simple lifestyle that is embedded with wisdom, and this is nature's wisdom, and nature is always simple, and always offer the effortless way, right? And talking about also sleep problems and whatnot, to be honest with you, Heidi, I think like people who are aware that they have a sleep problem are blessed, because I meet so many people who are not even aware. It's like those people who are eating McDonald's all the time, and they think they feel good on McDonald's because they have never stepped back, and they have never been on a organic seasonal farm where they had like a whole quality, like high quality food. But when this happens, if you take that same person who's eating McDonald's for all their life, if they retreat from that and they go to a farm and they start eating whole food, then within a matter of 3 days, they're going to start going outside of their box, and they're going to understand that they have been really putting themselves in a very restricted environment, and they were not even aware how better it could get until they felt what it means to feel better, right? And so many people today, you talk to them and they're like, oh yeah, I sleep well. Okay, tell me about it. I have met so many people who have had the belief that they sleep well, and it wasn't until they stepped outside of their box and experienced something new that stretched them, that allowed them to understand what it means to actually sleep better, until they became aware that, oh my God, I would never come back to that state where I thought I'm sleeping well, but there's a lot more into it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So that actually reminds me of something. And my son just put in the chat in the YouTube channel. He said, I always show up for my mom when I can. Remember, we were just talking about that before the show. I was like, my sons like to support my podcast and whatever. So he just wanted to come in and say hi. His name is Jackson. And interesting that you said that about McDonald's. So he actually messaged me about probably a month ago, and he said, Mom, you're going to be so proud of me, because he's a solar salesman out in San Francisco. And he said, all the guys, everybody stops and gets junk food, gets McDonald's, gets whatever. And he took a picture of what he brought. He brought, because he's been asking me more about nutrition and how to nourish his sacred temple too, right? And he brought lettuce wraps. He's 20 years old, and he brought his own lettuce wraps to make his own, beautiful, healthy, whole food lunch, chicken tacos or whatever. And I'm just like, oh my God. And, his buddies sit around and they watch football on Sundays. And what does he do? He's outside, he's going to the beach, he's hiking, and he's really, trying to work toward living a healthier lifestyle. And he sees us doing this. So that is absolutely the impetus for me being on this podcast, because I want to be the example for these younger people, Roudy. And, in a segue too, to what we see with the gaming epidemic and the toxic blue light. And oh my God, what I see in their generation. And I'm just like, I'm a little nervous about that generation. And so spreading the word, that's why I want you here. You're a beautiful, eloquent speaker about changing your lifestyle and really paying attention and becoming aware of these things to more people and to men, I think, in particular. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I relate so much to this, and I first want to say hi to Jackson and say that he's someone very special and a beautiful star, a light among darkness, and it takes courage to play that role, especially when you're surrounded in an environment where everyone is different. And as humans, we want to fit in, we want to blend, we want to feel understood. So it's not always the easiest to do to do what our hearts is telling us to do, among others who are doing completely different things from a habitual way of doing things.
Right.
So it's beautiful, Jackson, that you're actually stepping into what you truly want, and you're being different, and there's a blessing in that. And even though people might not understand it, there's going to come a time where all these people are going to come and seek your help and ask you, how do you do it? I'd like to do that. So that's very important. And oftentimes also, I guess, as men, we're disconnected from our feelings. I don't want to generalize, because I have seen men that are completely and deeply connected with their emotional body, and that they're extremely emotionally intelligent. But often the way we are brought up in society with telling men that it's not okay to cry, it's not okay to feel. And from a very young age, when we keep hearing these things, we block those pathways of being able to feel and being able to connect to our emotional body, which is an intelligent highway that is continuously signaling to us about what's alive in us, so that we can navigate and move through life. And what often happens is that oftentimes men are very stuck in their head, let's say, and they're disconnected from actually living the experience. Because as I mentioned in my story, I did not seek that through books and like intellectualize it for years. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this is what light does, and this is what circadian rhythm is. I actually lived it. It was I was living every emotion of it, and I was allowing the experience to transform me from the inside out until came a point where I needed to understand. So I was seeking an intellectual understanding of my experience. And what happens with men that oftentimes they do it upside down. They want to sit and read about it for forever and then talk about it forever, but not implementing it. And unless you experience it, it's like merely information that is flowing into your brain, which is the seat of sensation. It's recording sensation. It's like literally only this. It does not go beyond that. And unless it goes beyond your brain into your consciousness, it does not become you. So you're stuck in almost like a sensory experience perception thing where you're seeking those sensations of thinking that you're understanding, but you're merely memorizing and repeating like a parrot.
Yeah.
Whereas like I find like oftentimes women want to follow the experience. They want to jump into the experience. They want to feel what it feels like to implement something. And then from that point of experience, you could seek an intellectual understanding where, and both are equally important, right? It's like the left and right. It's like the yin and yang. They need to merge together in oneness so that we are complete whole beings. So for Mani, usually, I mean, just like be more open-minded, right? And like relax into the experience a little bit, relax into your own perceptions, relax into your own belief systems. And unless you relax into your own belief system, how are you going to ever transcend them and open yourself up into something new that will stretch you into deeper truth, right? Because it's like, it's impossible when we are stuck within our own belief systems and old way of thinking. I mean, we will forever stay where we are.
Oh, that was so good. I'm just like I'm lost in your you're speaking to all of that. And to men, like that is, I feel like I know a lot of women who really struggle with, the men bringing the blue light devices, Roudy, into the bedroom or into their bed chamber and having blaring TVs. And even my own family, like, whatever. I don't like to be too specific about that when I'm speaking in public. But like there's all these complaints about things. And then I'm like, well, what are you doing before you go to sleep? And, like, what's your habit? Right. And what's going on? And it's like, oh, there's a blaring smart TV in front of your eyes before you go to sleep. And I'm like, oh my God, like, but they're not even willing to consider, right? Like turning off the TV. And there's so many layers and so many levels that are not wrong with that, but like destructive behavior, right?
So I think this is a problem that could be experienced from either side. You might have a woman that is stubborn about it. You might have a man that is stubborn about it.
Right.
You might have a friend that is stubborn about it. But I think like in life, it's all about balanced rhythmic interchange between polar opposites. And when this balanced rhythmic interchange is missing, we tap into effects of unbalance. And we are forever dealing with those residues of unbalance, which manifest as sickness, as conflict, as fear, as guilt, as shame, and all of these lower frequency emotions.
Right.
And until we learn how to create a balanced rhythm in every transaction, and between polar opposite, we cannot find our oneness. And this means that we will never find love. See, love is not an emotion. Love is much beyond any type of emotions. It's a state of being. You become love when you are able to move in rhythm and in balance with your partner, right? So with all that being said, I mean, I have seen this happening, let's say, in my own family, right? Where there has been this like subconscious like relating between my mom and dad that is toxic for both of them, where my mom has been programmed to give a lot, okay, and my dad has been programmed to take a lot. But see, none of them is right and the other is wrong. Both are moving in a direction that is toxic for both, because also like giving too much without having that conscious awareness whether the other person is able to re-give equally, is going to hurt you equally as much as it will hurt the other person. And in that sense, when we start speaking about sharing space and co-creating space, both parties need to understand that this is a co-created space. It means both parties are contributing equally into that space. And this also means that it takes a level of sensitivity and it takes a level of awareness of what the other person is needing. And when you give love to the other person, the basic scientific response in all this universe is love re-given.
Yeah.
Whereas when you give stubbornness and when you give conflict, the basic scientific reaction is conflict and stubbornness in all of your relationship. For like man out there or for women out there who are not considering others in their space, you will not be considerate. And you will continuously attract those experiences into yourself, because what you give out from yourself, you are re-given equally in equal measure. And this is how the universe works. When you learn how to give love and consideration, you will attract love and consideration. And when you are stubborn and you're giving hate and fear and you're wanting to control, you will be controlled in the same program that you try to use to control others.
Right. I mean, mic drop. We're done here. We can go home. I'm just kidding. That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. I mean, that's the law of cause and effect, right? I mean, that's what you're giving out and what are you attracting back into your world. There is something, I just want to grab my notebook because there's something I want to share with you that I wrote down yesterday. I journal a lot, and I was actually studying Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and I've been studying his master key stuff. So he's talking about the cosmic habit force. Are you familiar with that term, cosmic habit force?
No,
and it's like,
is that in Think and Grow Rich?
No, this is this is Napoleon Hill's master key series, and he actually has there's videos out there of Napoleon Hill. Giving lectures. So I was in this weird alpha state yesterday. I had my headphones on and I was just kind of dozing in and out of consciousness right before I was going to sleep, or maybe it was when I was waking up. I can't remember. It's always such a weird sleep, cycle. And when you come out of your sleep and then you go back in, especially when you're I do not a lot, but I tend to do some lucid stuff before, and I don't try to, I'm super connected to a source and I just float in and out of consciousness. And sometimes I don't always remember because I'm always, a lot of times I'm so present, right? That's one thing about memory too, is what I learned is if you don't have a lot of memories of the past that are very specific and, whatever. And I always say, I'm not chronological. It's because I'm very focused on being present and that everything in the past kind of just goes into it. Cause time is an illusion. Right. And so it's it all just kind of melds into one. So I don't remember specific dates. I don't remember that's not important to me. What's important to me right here and now is talking to you. Right. So I don't need to go back and collect all that data and store it in my memory even. That's not, I want to be an open container for creativity. So he was talking about this idea, this natural law. It's called cosmic habit force. And I was just wow, it's such a beautiful term anyway. And I was just curious if you had heard it before. And there's a polarity to it. So there's a high frequency and then a low frequency to it. And he's talking about the negative aspect being hypnotic rhythm. So when you were talking about, people that are in this hypnotic rhythm, right? And you're just acting from the drift and you're literally drifting and doing a habituation of what you've been doing, right? 90% of our thoughts. And so what Napoleon is saying is using cosmic habit force, because we are, beyond if there's aliens or other beings, that are, I'm sure, whatever higher frequencies, but on this planet, in this 3D matrix, right, that we can see with our senses, we're the only beings that have control of our minds. And he's saying this is the cosmic habit force, where everything in nature is a fractal, right? That's going to, the acorn has to become an oak tree. There's the blueprint, the pattern in it. And so animals, they all live in their environment through instinct, and they can, they're born and they know exactly what to do. And what's a human baby do? We don't have that when we're born. we have higher faculties though, right? And we're being programmed through that 0 to 7 by our family, by the people around us. And he talks about, one little boy that Bob Proctor does, and a boy that he knew by the age of 4 who could speak 4 languages because there was 4 language being spoken in the home. Yes. And so we have all of this, right? And it's like, why not work on accessing it? So I'm a high frequency coach. So I'm always like expanding and looking at this information, but I don't know. Do you have anything you want to share or respond to that?
No, like we are cosmic beings.
Yeah.
And that cosmic light is forever whispering in our own ears, but very few of us hear it because we are so distracted with our senses. And we think that we are our senses, in fact. Right. Whereas we are much, much beyond our senses. And though animals are instinctively controlled, which is perfect because they're controlled by source energy, we have that power to use our higher faculties like imagination and reasoning and memory and so on. And oftentimes what we don't realize when we speak about imagination is that we are using our imagination all the time, but oftentimes based on memories that are destructive, and we keep creating these memories again and again and again. Whereas we have that power to pause and to redirect our mind and our imagination to become more, so that we can give more, so that we can love more. And once we get a taste of this, there's no stepping back, because we just quenching our thirst from the nourishing water that we are, right? Yeah. So what I'd like to add to this is like also our habits and what we do on a daily basis is going to deeply influence this. So like the type of food that we put in our mouth, the quality of light that enters our eyes, right? So like we know for example, that morning sunlight, particularly UVA light, which shows up 60 to 90 minutes after the sunrise, depending on where you are on Earth, provides the energy for the natural conversion of amino acid, tryptophan into serotonin, and melatonin, the sleep hormone, and tyrosine into dopamine. Now, we all know how important melatonin is, and so many people get into taking melatonin pills, but nature has equipped us with a natural cycle of interacting with light and darkness to particularly synthesize melatonin. So when we start taking melatonin pills, we're literally destroying our endogenous ability to make the melatonin. It's never the same. But also when we speak, let's say, about dopamine, it's this miraculous molecule that gives us motivation and inspiration and enhances our cognition and memory. It allows us to sit up, pay attention, think outside of the box, plan imaginatively for the future, right? And what happened is that when we are continuously missing that healthy light, we're missing on this inner pharmacy that allow us to access those higher faculties, okay? And we now know, for example, there's a researcher and circadian expert called Samer Hittar from Jordan. He's also like from a Middle Eastern background like myself. Okay. He published a very interesting paper showing the very little artificial blue or green light arriving at the eyes at night suppresses the release of dopamine the following morning and negatively influence our cognition and our memory. And what does this mean for a regular person? It means that they will wake up feeling much less happy and much more likely to be disappointed and unsatisfied. And this is exactly the cycle that I was stuck in growing up as a kid, going to university, starting to work as an engineer. I have never been able to wake up with that quality of inner connection and motivation. Why is that? Because my serotonin and my dopamine were very low. Why is that? Because I was stuck in a lifestyle that depleted my dopamine, such as eating sugar, pornography, video games, watching television, scrolling on my phone all the time, allowing all these notifications from different social media apps to pull me in every direction possible. And all of these things deplete our dopamine, though they feel good at first because they get us this dopamine boost. But what actually happens is dopamine drops very fast, way below baseline. And then we are stuck with needing more and needing more and needing more. And These behaviors lead to addiction, right? It leads also to consumerism.
Mhm.
Whereas when you take a step back from that and you allow nature to build your dopamine and serotonin, then you are in a sweet spot, in a sweet position to be able to pause and rethink your habits. We are
Mhm.
creatures of habits, and it's all about whether those habits are serving us as human beings or not. And oftentimes, we are stuck in habits that do not serve us, that we have picked up from our environment,
Mhm.
from our families, from our teachers at school. So there come a time in our life when we are feeling depressed, we are feeling unsatisfied, we are almost maybe feeling suicidal and questioning, like, who am I? What's the meaning of life? Why am I here? And this is a very important time because, well, the pain has become so great that we are coming to a point where we are ready to change things and to move beyond that pain.
Yeah.
And we really need to take steps that allow us to move forward into life in a way that conserves our energy, in a way that is not depleting. So
Mhm.
that means really taking care of our light environment, taking care of the food that enter our mouth, our relationships. And this means also like learning how to say no and learning how to cut all those relationships that do not serve us. And even if we're in a marriage, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it's time for us to really define our values and to honestly look into our eyes squarely, like I did that night in front of the mirror, and
Yeah.
make a commitment that we want to feel better. And
Right.
when that commitment comes truly and deeply from the heart, things will start conspiring
Right.
so that you have all the resources that you need in order to move forward, because the resources are never outside of us. It's that resourcefulness inside of us that
Right.
will attract those resources outside of us so
Right.
that we can move to the point that we are looking to move towards. So sometimes this means also like really being honest with ourselves, talking about relationship. Let's say maybe a woman is learning about all of the like all of the detrimental effect of junk artificial light, and
Mhm.
she's really intuitively feeling that it's time for her to start blocking that light, to start maximizing healthy light. And maybe the husband is not on the same wavelength, and this is where communication kicks in, and
Mhm.
this is where like truly sitting and sharing one's need and what's alive from the inside and why this is important for you.
Right.
And if the other person is not willing to understand, is not willing to empathize, then this could mean that it's just not the right relationship, and that's okay. It's
Right.
not the end of the world. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes we need to step up and speak and move on so that we can grow.
Yeah. I love how our conversation started with like blue light blocking glasses and we turned all the way over to relationship coaching. It's so good. I mean, this is how I talk all the time. And I love listening to your perspective on this, Roudy. You have such a gentle, like loving approach to all of this. And I think like the way you can speak and reach men, I think is really, really powerful. And my son was just like, he wanted me to say this. He said, Roudy, that's absolutely badass. Definitely very humbling, mate. I am wondering if you guys can talk about what your mornings look like. So
Mm.
he wants to know, like, what do you do in the morning? Because he's only seen what Thaddeus and I do, and we do a lot of weird esoteric shit. So he's curious, like, what do you do? And then my second question is, are you starting any sort of men's group? Because like what you just threw down there, like that message, oh my God. I actually wrote a book and I put all my sons through gentleman training, and it's just my own thing. And I mean, really, this is what I teach them, and I have taught them through. I actually programmed my kids with Wayne Dyer growing up, and so I would be playing. I didn't even know that I was doing it either. I was like playing the YouTube videos in before school and after school because I didn't have the capacity at that time to unschool them, and they were being programmed by Wayne Dyer their entire childhood. And I was like, oh
Wow.
my God, no wonder they're all just like little budding coaches. And like,
Mm.
they're so teed up to all this information and they're thirsty for the knowledge. That's what I love about it is like, Jackson will message me and be like, Mom, I need a call. And I'm like, well, you don't need a call. He's like, Mom, can we do a coaching call? Right. And I'm just like, really? And he's like, send me a picture of your refrigerator. And he's just thirsty, they're hungry for it. So anyway, I'll let you.
That's so beautiful and so special. And
Yeah.
It's definitely a reflection of the balance and the love that you have put in every action while raising them, which is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And yeah, talking about my morning routine, it always starts the night before, during the evening,
Mhm.
because like many people talk about the morning routine, but they forget about the evening routine. They think that they could, do whatever the night before, drink whatever, eat whatever, expose their eyes to whatever light, and then use their willpower to wake up at a certain time, the 5 a.m. club or whatever.
Yeah.
But they end up going into that torturing cycle, because it's just a cycle that is not in alignment with nature's processes.
Right.
Nature always has this equal balance interchange between yin and yang, and think
Mhm.
of it this time, light and darkness. So there's
Right.
a time for being active, and there's a time for rest. And activity and power always extend from rest,
Mm.
and always extends from stillness. So I find my still resting time during the evening. I block artificial light. I use very warm lights at night. I don't eat 5 hours before bedtime.
Mhm.
I use a lot of that time to meditate, to chant, to do contact improvisation if I had a partner to dance with. I
Mhm.
love dancing so much. It's also like a way for me to express myself. And I don't know if you've heard of contact improvisation, but it's
I
this
have not.
beautiful technique where you're dancing with someone and there's so much contact where both center of gravities become one center of gravity, and you use each other weight to roll and turn and do spirals and different beautiful things. So it's really a very beautiful practice, because it requires not only using your own body, but also being intuitive about the other person's body, and allowing that oneness of center of gravity to manifest, so that you become one body moving in space. So that's something I enjoy in the evening. I enjoy chanting with my family. I sometimes I turn on a candle and I watch it forever.
Mm.
Enjoy meditating, taking
Mhm.
like a time to contemplate my day, to think
Mm.
like, how could I have been a better person today?
Mm.
What about my behavior that is not in alignment with the person I want to be? So taking
Mm.
that time to really reflect on my day, and reflect on myself, and reflect on how I want to move forward in life.
Mm.
And ideally, I love waking up around 4:30 at dawn, and I have programmed myself to be able to do this with no alarm clocks. Just programming my circadian rhythm by getting consistent light exposure in the morning at the same time,
Mm.
and by blocking artificial light at the same time every day, which is a mistake that so many people get into when they start wearing blue blockers, or call them, I don't like to call them blue blockers, let's call them circadian light filtering eyewear.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one important thing about those glasses is that you need to wear them at the same time every day.
Mhm.
And some people, let's say, wear them one night at 5, another night at 7, and another night they forget all about them. And this
Right.
create a lot of inconsistency in the rhythm. And it creates like a lot of chaos, because
Mm.
everything, when we speak rhythm, it requires
Mhm.
this consistency. And nature is very consistent. The sun sets at the same time every day, and it shifts few minutes every single day. So that's how we need to be in our light exposure as well.
Right.
And when I wake up at 4:30, I intentionally put myself into a state of being between sleep and awake. So
Mhm.
basically, I put my body to sleep, and I allow my mind to be sharply awake
Mm.
and wandering and traveling.
Mm.
And I use this amazing time where I do believe that my conscious mind and my subconscious mind merge together in oneness.
Mm.
And I use that time to be able to actually impress an image upon my subconscious mind on what I'd like this year to be, what I'd like the next 10 years to be, the person that I see myself becoming. So that's a very special like time where when like I'm probably in alpha or theta waves,
Mhm.
and I could easily wander the whole universe with my own mind.
Yeah.
Um I could program those images that I choose to program. And most importantly, during the practice, what I tap most on is feeling the feeling of what it feels like to be that person, and embodying that feeling as if it's happening now. So
Mm.
it's almost a state of thinking from that state rather than thinking and imagining about that state. And there's a massive difference. So I do this for like an hour and a half, and then I slowly wake up around 6 from that state, and I start doing my qigong or Shaolin practices. I grew up doing a lot of martial arts as well.
Okay.
But at that stage, I was doing it more for like fighting and whatnot. And then it turned into like an art of dancing and an art of like connecting with the universe through those practices. And just before the sun rises, I go down to the beach and I welcome the sun. I face east and I soak all of my body in this beautiful light as I'm breathing slowly, as I'm welcoming the day, as I'm envisioning what's going to happen for me this day. And then I swim, I dance, I enjoy myself. And eventually I come have my breakfast and then I start working.
Do you follow any sort of, I don't like to use diet, but like, do you eat obviously local whole foods? Are you vegan? Are you vegetarian? Do you pescatarian?
Yeah, I don't follow any specific diets. My diet will literally change depending on where I am on earth and what is growing around me. But one big value for me is never eating meat unless it comes from a regenerative source of farming, where there's a love cycle happening between the farmer and the animal, where the farmer is literally giving themselves to the animal all year long, taking care of them, loving them, providing shelter, providing high quality food. And then what I have noticed and observed living with the native people, that when this love cycle kick in, the animal re-give themselves equally for the love given. And this is a very different quality of taking from animals without giving, because as a humanity, we have fallen into the cycle of taking rather than the cycle of giving. And this universe is based on giving love for the purpose of inspiring an equally re-given love. And I have seen this with animals, and it's so powerful. And that's the only meat that I choose to consume or support. So anytime I go to a new region, I'm literally looking for those farmers so that I can support their work. And so that I know that I'm putting a type of meat in my body that is not abusive, that is not based on the principle of taking.
Right.
So yeah.
That's so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Well, okay. Yeah. And it's so particular to your light environment. And a lot of people are like, they get really hung up on like, oh, I need to eat this way, I need to eat that way. And they call it a diet. Right. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's so confining. And I feel like we're as a society, it's just such a stuck place for everybody. And even in my own journey of like, there's so much information. There's like, do this for your hormones, do this for this, do metabolism, And it's just like, literally like you're like a top spinning around. Right. And I just love what you just said about having that relationship with the farmer and the animals. We actually are a CSA like hub, and that we support local farmers so people can come pick up local, loved meat and raw milk at our home actually. And that's, like that's all we consume as well. But living in the North, like you've had that difference too. Like you live in the North, I feel like, we need to have some more meat and protein and fat to make it through the winter. But when we go down to Florida, I drink orange juice and I bask in the sun. I eat sunlight. Right.
Exactly. See, like, food is an electromagnetic barcode of sunlight. It's light that is stored in food, and in return, when we eat it, this food is broken down into electrons and protons, which are tiny light particles that the mitochondria use to generate energy, water, and so on. So what happens is, when we are in an environment and we are eating a specific type of food, this food is grown under a specific type of light. And particularly, there's a particular UV index that allow that food to be grown. For example, take a banana growing in Mexico. It requires a specific UV index and amount of lux and light intensity for this banana to grow. And this light is almost stored in this banana. And when we eat it, it's broken down into light again. that hit the photoreceptors in our gut,
Mm.
okay, and that hit the mitochondria, and basically those light waves create a spin in the mitochondria that inform our mitochondria about the light that this food was grown under.
Right.
And a big problem happen is that when the light entering our eyes is different from that light that is hitting the photoreceptors in our gut, it creates a mismatch, a confusion between the photoreceptors in the eyes and skin and the photoreceptors in the gut. So for example, someone living in Canada, they start eating bananas and bananas and bananas from Mexico. What happens is they eat this banana, and this light create a spin in their mitochondria, signaling to their mitochondria and the photoreceptors in the gut that they are in Mexico and it's summertime.
Right.
And then guess what? They go outside and their eyes are missing that high UV index.
Mm-hmm.
Their eyes is telling their body, no, you're wintertime in Canada and you're supposed to activate that winter programming.
Right.
And the photoreceptors in the gut is like, hell no, we're in summertime Mexico and we're supposed to activate the summer programming. And the summer programming wants you to eat more, right? Because you're out in the sun foraging, there's an abundance of foods, and you want to have enough energy to run away from that lion or that predator in the Havanas of Africa or whatever.
Right.
Whereas the winter programming works completely in a different way. It wants to conserve your energy. It wants you to store more fat and fast for longer hours because there's a scarcity of food and there's not a lot of food growing around.
Right.
So what happens is there's this, kind of like argument between the photoreceptors in the gut and the photoreceptors in the eye that create a circadian mismatch, leading to a lot of inflammation and confusion and chaos in the body. Now, many people get away with it if they have some other forces in their environment that are on spot, such as like if they have their light environment on spot, if they have a lot of darkness at night, if they are not using a lot of regulated temperature and the temperature in their environment is on spot during the winter, and from time to time they eat a banana or summertime food from Mexico, they might get away with it, right? Their body is still doing some compensations, using more energy to be able to deal with that situation.
Right.
But the true problem happen is like when all of the forces like light, darkness, temperature, food, when all of them are in misalignment, this is where like truly the true problems start to happening.
Yeah. So something I was thinking about when you were speaking, have you heard of the sun synced nutrition? That's Adam Bergstrom. He talks about different times of the day that he's eating different types of food too. So he's talking about like things, and this Thaddeus taught me this. And so like plants and trees have fruit that are high reaching. So like pears and oranges and apples, like in the morning. And then, so like the cascade of it, like, and then you come down and then you eat like other more ground level, fruits and vegetables, nuts, whatever, and midday, and then under the sea, so more fish or eggs at night because they're subterranean. Isn't that interesting?
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
And it could really make sense also from the perspective of light being food,
Right.
or food being something that stores light.
Right.
And then when you have this fruit trees that are high reaching towards the sky, they'll probably be able to harness more UV light, and this also means that you want to take advantage and eat those food early in the day, so that you're exposed to a lot of sunlight that could match that light and activate your enzymes. There's a biochemist back in the 1970s. I forgot his name, but he published very interesting studies showing how different enzymes and hormones that are related to the digestion and absorption of food are activated by frequencies of sunlight, so much so that they become 500% more effective.
Whoa.
Okay, so like that's a massive number, 5 times better at absorbing food.
Right.
And this also means that like it's very important that we eat during the day when the sun is out, because we need that light to activate those enzymes and those hormones and that inner pharmacy, in order to be able to absorb that food and absorb it into our bloodstream.
Right. Well, and where we live, I mean, like right around solstice, we're dark at 4:30, 5 o'clock. And I know like people with modern lifestyles, it's always like, I'm like, okay, well, what are you making a concession for if you're going to eat after dark, right? Like that's something like you have to kind of figure out and hack your lifestyle, right? To be able to eat within that window. And I can imagine like even where you were at in Northern Canada was probably what, 3 o'clock. That's where it was in
Yes.
Norway.
3 or
And
3:30, and
yeah,
this is why like people tell me like, hey, what time do you sleep? I'm like, it depends. Is it summer or is it winter? In the
right.
winter I sleep at 7 p.m. In summer I sleep 10:30.
Yeah, exactly.
What time do you eat also? Is it summer or is it winter? What do you eat? Well, where am I on earth? Is it
Yep.
summer? Is it winter? All these questions need to be asked before we start thinking about what to eat. We start getting into those rabbit holes of vegetarian and veganism and following occults or different religion practices. But like, we need to remember, like, if we're following Eastern tradition from India, those folks are very different than the
Right.
environment in Canada of indigenous people. So like, really, I mean, let's not get stuck with the technique and tap into the essence of thing. And when we start understanding that the essence of things is light that is actually manifested in matter, everything changes. We stop getting stuck with dogmatic stuff and we understand that light is continuously changing.
Yeah.
It's not something constant. And and we need to ebb and flow. We need to dance with that ebbing and flowing light and change our practices depending on how light is shifting in our environment.
Absolutely. That's so important. And I think some people just don't know that information, right? So I love the work that you're doing. And Roudy, this is why like I wanted you on the podcast. Okay, I'm looking at the time. Like I could talk to you for another 2 hours, but we're at 11:15. And I want to honor your time too and be respectful. Can you, okay, I just have like two to three more questions and then we're going to wrap up at 11:30. So are you good? Are you good with
Yes.
that? Okay,
Yes.
so I would need to know when you were talking about your imagination, and I do the same practice in the morning where I'm like envisioning things. I'm up at like maybe 5 o'clock and doing that same kind of like in and out of consciousness, but like working on, you know, what is I want in my life and my day and all of that. I love that. And then so I do want to touch on where in your imagination, when did you get the impetus, the impulse, and the download to design these glasses with this really cool, like magnetic, guys, these are revolutionary. And I love that they're sustainable ebony. I mean, I love everything about these glasses, but I really want to know, like, when did the idea pop into your consciousness? Were you by a tree? Were you talking to trees?
Yeah,
Were you
that's a
in the
beautiful
water?
question. I was actually in water when I was
Oh,
underwater.
oh,
I was in the hot springs in British Columbia during the winter, and
okay.
it was a minus 15 day, like really cold. And I decided to go to the hot springs. I hiked for like 2 hours and a half in the snow, and I went down to the springs. And I have like kind of like a ritual or practice where I love to alternate between the frozen river and the hot spring, back and forth. And then eventually I get into a state of like wanting to do a long breath hold and practicing my breath hold. So I was in cold water in the river and I was under the water doing a very, very long breath hold. And the top of my head was touching the earth or the rocks of the mountain. And I literally felt like a very interesting sensation of like being plugged into the earth. And I was having like different visuals and colors and visions. And the idea of creating the clip and go flashed into my mind. And it was like extremely clear. I left the river, and that same night, I'm driving back to home and I call my sister and she was back in Lebanon. And I tell her about the idea and she's like, oh my God, that's a phenomenal idea. And like we took action right away and we launched the product probably in 3 months after the idea flashed into my consciousness. And it so fast became the #1 bestseller in our store. It
So
was like
cool.
amazing.
Oh my God. I love that. And I mean, honestly, like I love getting downloads. That's how I live my life now is like, I get hunches and I lead my life in a flow. Right. And so, just knowing other people are out there, like getting ideas and, you know, living that way. It's so fun to hear that story. So thank you for sharing that. I do want to
Yeah.
know more about the Janzu experience. Can we circle back to that and just explain like what it is and like how, what you were feeling like maybe before? Is there an impetus that took you there, or and then after? So it's
I did not know that a practice called Janzu existed. As I mentioned, I have a very deep connection with water, and I have had very interesting states under the water where I was in communion with the water. We are water, 70% water and molecularly 99%. And there's also this very connection with the womb as fetus where we are covered with this water, right? So I was like more and more connecting with those states of the sacredness of that water. And I used to go to those hot springs and practice a lot of my qigong and in water. And I've always felt like this deep desire to explore more. And not too long time ago, I met a person during an event here in Mexico, and she was explaining to me about a practice called Janzu, which you could think of as almost like a dance, a play, and a meditation at the same time, where one person is giving and the other person is receiving. But the person who is giving is it's all about complete relaxation and tapping into a very alpha state of mind where you completely relax, because it's very important. In water, everything is transmitted really fast, and all of your emotions and all of your thoughts are transmitted to the other person. So it's really about tapping into this deep state of relaxation, and it's almost about starting to practice your Tai Chi or Qigong while holding the other body and allowing them to go on a journey. First, it starts above the water, where like you do different moves and like different spiralings, and eventually the other person relaxes so much. And of course, there's like a lot of different techniques that are used on how to touch the body and how to move the body. But then you can start taking that body under the water and above water, and the more the other person relaxes, the longer they could stay under the water. But then they completely go in a state of letting go and being super passive, and the other person uses force or direction to start turning and swirling their body. And it's like it's a state that is very difficult to describe with words, but it's different for everyone. Some people start tapping into the memory of being in the womb. Other people really start tapping into source energy and seeing visions. But the most meaningful thing about all of this is that you truly tap into a state of deep relaxation and deep state of love, being covered by the love of the water and by the love of the other person who is there for you, present and holding space. I mean, maybe for the first time you would feel that for an hour there's someone that is 100% completely present, holding space for you, for your process, which is something very beautiful and not so many people get to experience. I mean, sometimes I run into people that they have never experienced a state of presence for more than a minute, feeling that they are held and that they are supported and that. So this allows a lot of surrender and allows a lot of ability to release and to open up into that process, and to open up into the emotions and allow the emotions to move and allow the water to move the emotions. So for 6 days we practiced in the caves and in the hot springs of Mexico, and oh my God, everything in the water happens at a very accelerated pace. So let's say if you know someone on earth and you get to know them, if it takes a year to deepen your relationship to them to a certain point, in water it's like 10 days maybe. It's like so accelerated, and the level of intimacy and connection that you get to experience with others that you're practicing with is extremely profound. And one more thing I'd like to share is we did something that is considered connected a little bit to Janzu, but not necessarily. It's called the water dance, where we were like 25 people and in complete darkness. And basically you start initiating spirals in the water. So you go in and out of the water like this, and you continue spiraling. But when there's 25 people really spiraling very slow, it becomes like a collective dance that is almost like beyond the eyes, beyond the touch. It's like it becomes very psychic almost. Like there's like this collective communication between all of the bodies. And the beautiful thing about it, you could get to a point where like you're not doing anything, but there's all this inertia and momentum in the water that is like turning you every other, like in all directions. And it's like literally for the first time, I felt like this connection as a flock, as a human being, like doing something in oneness, in complete harmony, which is something that you don't see often. But I truly think that as a species, we are meant to do things in oneness. We are meant to unite in such ways. Yeah. And it was a phenomenal experience to be able to know that oneness and what it means to like harmonize and do things in the spirit of cooperation and harmony.
That is so beautiful. I swear my nervous system just went, and I'm like, you're talking, I'm just like swirling and oh my God. So the 25 people, like, do you know them, or are they like they're, it's just whoever's like, I mean, teed up to, engage in.
So basically by the time we did that dance, we have developed a deep level of intimacy and connection and safety because we have been doing the Janzu together for 3 or 4 days.
Okay. So you go to a spa, the retreat, to do the Janzu? Is somebody leading you? How does that like?
So there was like 2 teachers giving. So what I was doing is like I was doing a certification so that I could give Janzu. And to be honest, I was doing it from a place of like really wanting to offer it to my loved ones. It's like I'm not going to like get certified and start like a practice out of it because I'm committed to so many other things right now. But because of my connection with the water, because of the deep states that I've experienced in the water, I know the power of water to help someone to release what they need to release or to tap into what they need to tap. So I really wanted to go and experience this. And it was like, two teachers. They're a couple powerful beings that they have been on this water mission for a while now. And it was also beautiful to talk to them about like some of the research about the water, exclusive zone water, Jared Pollack, and the connection between light and water. Yeah. And I was explaining to them a lot about how sunlight actually creates that structured, easy water in our cells, which is exactly the same water that is present in nature, which start acting as a battery, as this electric potential that when light strikes it, it creates a split between the negative and positive charge. And this polarity of charges, it creates a battery effect where where the cells use and do work. And interestingly, we know that artificial light, particularly like the narrow spike in blue that we get from LED bulbs and screen, actually does the opposite thing. It dehydrates the high quality, easy water from the body. And so I was like sharing with them all of these different things, and it felt like a beautiful union of like understanding the science and experiencing it. Because like often you don't, like you talk to scientists, let's say, they know the science, but they have not had that experience. And I was telling the Janzu people, oh my God, like imagine Dr. Jared Pollack like really receiving a Janzu session in the water and like really connecting with water beyond like looking at a microscope, becoming the water is the true thing.
Next level. Yes. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Well, I just had an idea for our anniversary. So if I don't know if my husband's watching, but that's what I want to do for our anniversary next year.
That would be like one of the most wondrous gifts you could ever give him.
Oh my God, that'd be so cool. Yes. Okay, last thing. What is on the horizon for Viva Rays? What's on the horizon for Roudy and Joy? Like, what are you guys working on now?
Yeah, so like before I go to the Janzu course, I have given a winter webinar that was extremely successul. We had an amazing turnout of people showing out and learning wonderful things. So and the webinar was focused on helping people how to turn the winter blues and the fatigue into joy and energy and rejuvenation by teaching them about the 5 quantum physical forces that activate our winter programming. So that was really successful. Awesome. And now we're turning it, we offered it for free. And it was like a labor of love of like working for 2 months on it, to be honest. And now we're turning it into like an e-course that is going to be present on our website on Viva Rays. And I plan to do like several of those. I also plan to do a course, more like a quest that takes people on a journey about how to implement all the different wisdom of what it means to connect with healthy light and implement those steps into our life so that we can have better sleep, more energy, more focus, and connect also with Mother Nature and its rhythm, the daily rhythm, the seasonally rhythms, those quantum forces that are continuously guiding our inner pharmacy, and how to harness those forces and overcome all the corruption in those forces that is happening because of our modern way of living.
Right.
And we have launched several new frames, one of which is the Musicelli 100% biodegradable frame, which we were really excited about. It took a while to be able to source out that material. It's not always the easiest when you're doing like a lot of like sustainable sourcing and whatnot, but it's exciting always when it comes to fruition and crystallizes. And lastly, I am working on lighting. So it's my deep desire to bring healthy lighting to the world beyond what is being advertised today as circadian lighting. So this is a big project that I'm continuously working on with engineers and whatnot to stretch what it means to have healthy light in the world. And also one very important thing to me is always, how can I bring beauty with bringing health? And I'm really looking into those aspects of being able to integrate beauty with full spectrum and healthy frequencies of light. So all of these things bubbling up.
So cool. Well, I mean, just going to your website and speaking with you, you can tell that you guys are like into aesthetics, right? With these gorgeous glasses. And again, I'm just going to invite everybody to visit Viva Rays, vivarays.com, and check out Roudy's blogs. He's an eloquent writer and clearly a very profound speaker. And I mean, I can't wait to see what you guys are gonna do and to change this world, right? Like this is just the beginning. And this is the new frontier. And I love this. So we're all, lifting each other up. And that's why I really wanted to have you on the podcast. Is like, I mean, we swim in some of the same territory, right? With the circadian rhythm sleep glasses.
Absolutely. And, I mean, we're all doing this together. And it's like because of people like you who are truly inspired in doing the work and eager to see that change, to live that change, that we're able to make that change.
Yeah. And, like this is for future generations. This is for my children, my children's children, and all the world's children. Like I always say when I was raising my children, I was like, these aren't just my children. These are the world's children. Right. Yes. And they belong to all of us. And so it's my responsibility, right, to put out some really good humans. And absolutely. Right. So, all right, Roudy. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm so honored and pleased. You gave so many beautiful things to think about. And I love how you explain things too. It's so from the heart, right? And you don't hear people speak like that a lot, honestly. So especially an engineer. My husband's another one. He can speak really eloquently like that too. And he's also an engineer. And so it's just really, I love the yin yang of that even, right? So yeah. So, all right. Well, we're going to wrap up. So thank you guys for joining. And Jackson, my son also said that he loved the reflection part that we were talking about earlier in the podcast. So he keeps texting on the chat. He's really excited.
Jackson, thanks so much.
Yeah. I'd love to introduce you guys sometime, and we should talk about retreats or something too. So we're all on this same, fun path. So, all right, Roudy. Well, thanks again for being here. Appreciate you.
Okay. Thanks so much.
All right. Yep. Thank you.